What's up, Broncos country? Welcome back inside the Centura Health Training Center for another episode of Broncos Now. As always, I'm your host, Sydney Jones, and coming up on today's episode, the Broncos held their second padded practice. We'll look at some of the top highlights from today, and we'll hear from head coach Sean Payton and several players. All that and more coming up. Today marked day 6 of training camp. The Broncos had another padded practice, their second of training camp so far. And we heard from head coach Sean Payton again today, and he discussed Russell Wilson and the work that he's put in the first week of camp.
Obviously, he's moving around well. His weight's down. He's in real good shape. He's working really hard. There are a lot of nuances still we're working through. There's some good things in the running game today. Each day, you kind of look at the film and you start again with the corrections. But I've been pleased with his progress and where he's at, really dating back to the offseason and to where we are now into our first full week.
And on the other side of the ball, Sean Payton talked about the secondary and what his impressions are of that group.
Listen, when I watch them, the first thing you see is they have ball skills, they're smart, and their experience. You see the communication, so it's hard to find completions in some of these drills. They do a really good job of it. And they force you in some of their 7.5-man fronts to be patient and run the ball. They're a challenge.
Safety Kareem Jackson added to that by discussing the work the secondary has put in so far at this camp.
All about getting our work in, executing, the calls, and obviously learning each other, learning to trust each other. Obviously we got a lot of experience playing together. A large majority of us was together last year, so we got some new faces. But other than that, it's just all about us executing and learning to trust each other.
With this being Kareem Jackson's 14th training camp in the league, he discussed how he approaches it at this point in his career.
I come in and I go about my work the same way. I get my work done. I execute whatever calls I'm in. And at the end of the day, I can't control the situation or the position that I'm in. I can only control what I do about it, and that's come in and be the same guy. At the end of the day, as long as I'm coming in and doing what I'm supposed to do, I just have to let the chips fall where they may.
Plus, tackle Garett Bolles also spoke to the media, and he was asked why camp feels so different this year.
A coach that has our back, a coach that loves us, a coach that wants what's best for each and every single person, understands that everybody's different. And everybody has different aspects of the game. People fast, big, strong, and then he takes everybody, all 11 guys on the offense, and he puts us in positions to win. Coach Payton's been doing it for so many years. You've seen his record, you've seen what he does, and so it's just a great time to be a Bronco, to have a coach that loves and cares for each and every person.
Last but not least, head coach Sean Payton gave an update on wide receiver Tim Patrick.
Yes, he's got an Achilles tear. Spoke to him last night. Of course, he's disappointed. My understanding was a year ago, almost to the day. I think the hard thing, and I said it yesterday, is for a player that's spent most of his offseason rehabbing, then all of a sudden to hit another roadblock. He sounded better last night. He's tough-minded. He's a real good leader. And the good news is it's a clean injury, and that there's a, better than likely 100% recovery. It's pretty clean relative to the type of surgery he's going to have.
Now joining me here inside the Broncos podcast studio, per usual, is Broncos lead writer Aric DiLalla. Aric, another good day of practice today, second padded practice of training camp. I want to start with the offense today, Aric. What were just some of the biggest highlights, top highlights of the day?
Yeah, well, there was a big pass from Ben DiNucci to Montreal Washington down the field, longest play of training camp, so that stood out, obviously. And then late in practice, Russell Wilson found Courtland Sutton down the sideline. Pat Surtain and Justin Simmons were right there, but Courtland went up and made a nice play. Yeah. Those were probably the highlights. Sean Payton mentioned there were some good things that the team did in the run game. At a variety of moments, there were times when that offensive line looked good from a pass protection standpoint. But listen, it goes both ways. The defense had its share of moments too. And this is definitely an offense still figuring it out. Some third down stuff on this. What's today? Said Tuesday. On this Tuesday, they did a lot of third down stuff. Going to move into the red zone soon.
Right. Starting tomorrow, Coach said.
Yep, exactly. But yeah, I thought the offense is making strides. We heard Sean Payton talk about Russell Wilson and say that he likes where he is. I mean, it could always be better, and I think you're still seeing the defense kind of quote-unquote win these days, but some moments to be encouraged by from an offensive standpoint.
Greg Dulcich had that nice one-handed catch. That was
definitely
beautiful. And Coach also talked about the secondary, Aric. He was asked about it in his press conference, and he said he's been pretty impressed with them in that group.
Yeah, they've been all over the place, especially Justin Simmons. He stood out again today. I think back-to-back days now with an interception, 3 interceptions over the course of training camp for Justin. He's been active even by his standards. We're used to Justin flying around out there making plays, but it seems like he's found even another gear, and I'll be interested to see if that translates to the regular season. Is there something about this Vance Joseph defense that really fits Justin Simmons and gives him a chance at this stage in his career to make plays? Today's might have been the best of the bunch. He read her out the whole way, jumped it, probably would have been a pick 6 in a game. And I believe Justin has just one of those in his career. I'm sure he'd love to add to that tally. He's making plays out there. The rest of the secondary looks good as well. It's a good group between Pat Surtain, Damari Mathis. Riley Moss wasn't out there today, but he's obviously taking steps. Jaquan McMillan, he's been good. So a lot of good corners, and then of course at safety, we know the talent that's there. So encouraged by that group again. I think Kareem Jackson was asked, "Hey, do you guys as a secondary need to take it easy on the offense?" And he said, "No, we're getting our work in."
Yeah. Well, Aric, we saw some 9-on-7 drills as well today, and Head Coach Sean Payton, he kind of talked about that after practice and said that that's something he's really comfortable with and has done for many years in training camp.
Yeah, it was a good opportunity for these guys. It was run game based because you had the wide receivers and corners, working on one-on-ones on the other field, and the quarterbacks were kind of rotating. Looked like the safeties kind of stayed with the run game group. There's the 9-on-7. But this was a scenario where offensive line against defensive line, fullback against linebacker, and just had a chance to go and see who wanted it more. And I thought the first team defense had a nice period there. Maybe the reserve offensive line got the better of the reserve defense. But certainly that's kind of where you see some of the physicality start to come out. It'll be interesting to see if they keep doing that, how much of it. Do they do regular 7-on-7 at times with a passing tree? It does seem like while the general structure of practice is the same each day, there's these little changes here and there, which one lets you get different types of work in, but I'm sure if you're a player, also keeps it fresh because you're not doing the same thing day after day after day. So I enjoyed watching those periods. Sat there and watched who got the best of who. That's kind of the mano-a-mano. It's not quite an Oklahoma drill, Sid, but it's about as close as we're going to get.
That's not something we've seen here in the past several years, right?
No, not to that extent in terms of level of physicality. And there are a couple plays later where guys took other players to the ground. It wasn't extensive or anything like that, but the physicality is definitely at a much higher level than it's been.
Yeah, we love to see it. Aric, a position battle that fans might not be aware of is between kickers Elliott Fry and Brett Maher. What have you seen from them? And I know we talked to them after practice today. Kind of what were your takeaways from those scrums? Yeah,
it seems like it's been pretty even so far. Even if you're aware of the battle, which I'm sure that some people are, it's not something you're monitoring every day necessarily. It's kind of a niche position battle, if you will. Sure. One, it's between these two guys, but as Sean Payton has made it clear whenever he's been asked about it, it's also all the other kickers who are available out there because in New Orleans there was a kicking competition, went through the whole training camp preseason, then they signed somebody off the street. So just because these two guys are competing right now, they've got to be aware that they're competing against everybody. You've got a guy in Elliott Fry who's kind of bounced around a couple of different places. He's looking for that chance to become the full-time guy. Like his attitude, he kind of said, "Hey, I'm aware of this competition, and we're not necessarily helping each other too much. It's not necessarily from a competitive standpoint, but more he's got his routine, Brett's got his routine, and they're going to kind of stay and worry about those things themselves." And he acknowledged that, hey, I know when he makes a kick or misses a kick, and I'm sure he knows when I make or miss a kick. So Elliott Fry is a guy that's been here, obviously, since Brandon McManus was let go. Maher comes in a little bit later, just at the start of training camp. And he's a guy said that I think is maybe a little bit more of the intriguing case just because he was really good last year. I believe he holds the record for the most career 60-plus yard field goals. So he's got a leg. Last year, top 10 in field goal percentage. just a good kicker, and a few of those misses came from like 59 yards. So he has the ability to kick from that far. They're not afraid to let him try that, but that kind of hurt his percentage a little bit. So if it were just that, you'd be like, wow, this guy's really good. He's probably the clear-cut favorite. Mm-hmm. But then there's the postseason game last year where he missed, I think, 4 extra points in a row, and then I believe there's another one the next week. And he, to his credit, when he was asked about it, it'd be easy, I think, to just say, I've moved past that, blah, blah, blah.
Don't want to talk about it.
He said it was mental, it was physical, and technique-based. He said he spent a lot of his offseason working on how to correct those issues and make sure it doesn't happen again.
Wow.
Kind of talked about how, when you're a kicker, you develop these scars, and this is one of those scars that he, you want to use it to help push you forward as opposed to being something that's a detriment long term. But I respected how he talked about that and how he didn't run away from it. And he said, I did use that to fuel me this offseason. And so it'll be interesting to see how these guys compete over the course of training camp in the preseason. Brett's definitely the more proven guy, but when it's a kicking competition, as Elliott Fry said, it's pretty easy to see who's winning and who's losing.
Right?
So, no guarantees in terms of who's going to be that guy.
We'll be on the lookout for that. Aric, last but not least, was there anyone we haven't talked about yet or over the course of this past week that's kind of stood out to you at camp?
Yeah, we didn't talk about Zach Allen today, and he was all over the place. Whether it's batting a pass down, whether it's breaking through for a potential sack. I mean, this guy's motor is relentless. And we talked a lot when he was signed to think about his run-stopping ability and how that would be a big deal. But he's shown the ability so far to get into the backfield on passing plays. I think 5.5 sacks last year, a career high. An ascending player, Sid, as we know. But he seems poised for a breakout. I mean, this is a guy that is playing really well, has a great attitude in terms of a guy you want up there getting after the quarterback, that effort, that intensity. And he was a problem for the offensive line on Tuesday. So I enjoyed watching him, and we'll keep my eye on him moving forward.
We love to see it. Aric, appreciate you joining the show today and for your thoughts.
You got it, Sid. I'll see you tomorrow.
Plus, both kicker Brett Maher and kicker Elliott Fry discuss their competition and how they're approaching it.
Glad to be here. I'm really excited for the opportunity. Obviously, I know Coach Payton just a little bit, and I've ran in with Coach Kotwicka in and out of my career. So I'm happy to be back with them, and then getting to know Coach Westhoff and Coach Banjo also, and the rest of the guys in the organization.
I think we're both kicking really good right now, and taking it day by day. I think, it's a long competition. We're only in week 1, so I think we're both just putting our head down and trying to make kicks.
Well, that'll do it for today's episode of Broncos Now. Broncos Country, thanks so much for tuning in. We'll meet you right back here on the Broncos Podcast Network and YouTube tomorrow as the team has another padded practice. I'll see you all then.